Hey, it's Brent. At the time of recording this episode, Belize had 456 confirmed cases of COVID-19, including 4 deaths. That 4th death was announced just as this podcast was about to be recorded, and the name of the deceased had not yet been released. Coming up, a massive increase in the number of COVID cases, and some good news about a Belizean woman providing comfort food for patients in quarantine.
You're listening to Brent's 2 Cents, the semi-serious thoughts of a guy in Belize. And now here's the host of this podcast from somewhere in Belize City, Brent Toombs.
And I just want to make a plea to people. You don't have to wait for legislation to be responsible and act in good sense. So please, even if the law might say you don't have to do it, always err on the side of caution, because it's a hell of a disease. And if the people don't start to grasp that this pandemic is serious, then it will be a tough battle.
That's the Attorney General of Belize, Michael Parafit, from his live broadcast this past Saturday night, telling Belizeans that just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And that's exactly what's on my mind this week. Hey, welcome to the podcast for the week of August 17th. Now, before I begin, I want to express my condolences to the friends and family of Luis Romero Sr., especially to Luis's sister Christina and her partner Natalie. Natalie has been a friend of mine for a number of years, and she is a big supporter of this podcast. And that's why the death of Luis Romero, the 3rd person in Belize lost to COVID-19, really hammers home for me that we are all very closely connected in Belize. Those are not abstract numbers on the Ministry of Health infographic. Those 456 cases are people you may know, or likely someone who knows someone that you know. People joke that everyone in Belize are cousins, and that's probably not far from the truth. That's something beautiful about Belize. But it's also why stigmatization and shaming can be so destructive to our communities. We just experienced the worst week since the virus arrived in Belize back in March. By my count, there were 300 new cases diagnosed last week. That brings our total to 456 with 4 deaths. So at this point, we need to move beyond blaming border jumpers or phantom investors or people who drop their guard in order to enjoy themselves. What we are seeing now are people getting infected due to no real fault of their own. These are people who are simply going to work or shopping or had someone living in their home who was infected and spread the virus to others. Now is the time to rally, to unite, and to do everything we can to keep the situation from getting even more out of control. I believe we are at a tipping point. This next week or two will show whether we are able to contain the infections that originated from various super spreader events to just the attendees and their direct contacts, or we will learn that the virus has spread widely throughout our communities and is now infecting people seemingly at random. That second scenario is by far the most frightening, and it's why we need to do everything possible right now to contain the spread. Many people have been calling for a national lockdown, and for the most part, I include myself in that camp. But I'm not going to use this platform to make a case for locking down Belize. The Prime Minister has said that's not going to happen, at least not yet, because the economy, or what's left of the economy, could not survive that kind of constriction. So instead, the onus is being put on us, all of us, to act responsibly, to make sacrifices for the sake of public health, and to police our own behavior during this crisis. And that goes well beyond simply wearing your mask properly. As the Attorney General said, just because you are allowed to do something doesn't mean you should do it. So the law says you can eat at a restaurant with 10 people at your table and 10 more people at another table, as long as it's 6 feet away, and so on and so on. But why would anyone want to share a table with 10 people or be in a restaurant with dozens of others at a time like this. I get the need to eat out, and it's important to patronize your favorite restaurants if you can. But why not just get takeout? Or why would you want to host a party for even 10 people right now? Sure, it would be perfectly legal, but why take the risk that one of your friends might be an asymptomatic carrier of COVID-19? If you're one of those people who work in Belize City or Belmopan and live in those communities from Monday to Friday, but go home to your town or village every weekend, maybe you need to stay put for now. The less people moving between districts, especially on public transportation, the better. There are so many other ways we can adjust our behavior and routines to reduce the risk of spreading the virus without having to wait for authorities to legislate us to do so. Stay home unless you absolutely need to be out, like going to work or getting food. And when you do have to go to the store, go alone. The less people who are out and about reduces the risk for both spreading and contracting the virus. Now is not the time to be hanging out. Just because you're permitted to take a circle or long bench outside the neighborhood shop doesn't mean you should. Why would you put yourself and others at risk? And just as importantly as what we do is what we say. We need to all get on the same page. That means people who continue to spread conspiracies or hoaxes or deny that COVID-19 is an actual health emergency or counter-message what health authorities are telling us need to shut the fuck up. People are continuing to get sick and die, even here in Belize. At what point are you going to accept that this shit is real? Masks and social distancing are the best defenses we have against this disease right now. This is not a deep state conspiracy so Bill Gates can hold the patent to an eventual vaccine that he will also use to put a microchip in people. If COVID-19 could be cured by a common malaria medication or a deworming tablet used by veterinarians, don't you think those treatments would be widespread by now? So please, stop sharing stuff you find on the internet just because it confirms what you think you know. Most of that stuff is just fancily presented junk science. Remember the famous words of Abraham Lincoln: "Not everything is true just because it's on the internet." And speaking of getting on the same page, the politicization of COVID-19 needs to stop now. Already I have noticed a shift from bipartisanship to political opportunism when it comes to dealing with this pandemic. I hope the door is still open for the leader of the opposition to return as co-chair of the National Oversight Committee. And I hope Johnny Briceño will take the Prime Minister up on that offer if it still exists. The upcoming general election won't be won or lost because of the response to COVID-19, because the guy running the show right now won't be leading his party into an election. Prime Minister Dean Barrow can make decisions about COVID-19 without concern for his own political future. And I think that is a fortunate state of circumstances for Belize. The PUP and UDP are going to battle it out during the upcoming campaign on the issues of corruption and the economy. And while the state of the economy is currently impacted by COVID-19, the election will be won or lost in large part based on who presents the best plan to rebuild the economy after this crisis passes. So what's important now is finding ways to end that crisis as quickly as possible, with as few infections as possible, and with as few fatalities as possible. And that's going to take all of us doing the right thing of our own free will and not waiting for new rules or regulations to force us to act responsibly.
We want to hear from you. You can find Brent's 2 Cents on Twitter and Facebook at 2 Cents Belize, or email us at podcast@oxaproductions.com. That's OXA Productions with an S.com.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system.
Hi, this is Brent. Thanks for calling the Your 2 Cents hotline. Please leave a message about anything you want to talk about after the beep.
Hi, Brent. I want to zero in on Kamala Harris's nomination as Joe Biden's vice presidential pick. It really warms my heart. First Black woman on the ticket of a major party. And I look at that in relation to what's going on regionally and also what's going on in Belize. And I think about the general elections coming up. Both major political parties are fielding 2 women on each side, 2 of 31, by no means acceptable. As I look at COVID in this entire light, women are disproportionately affected by COVID all over the world. Women serve on the front lines. They're employed disproportionately in the tourism sector, and many of them at the lowest socioeconomic round. I'm very much concerned as to what will happen. There's lots of single mothers, and a lot of these people, they have their house and they have a mortgage. And with the deferments going into like 6 months, maybe into a year, will the bank take these women's houses? How do we provide stimulus packages for women who are single mothers? So that's my concern. And it is also bolstered by the fact that when more women are in government, when more women serve at higher levels of cabinet, there are better family policies, better gender policies. The issues of men and women and children are met when women serve. Thank you.
When the number of COVID-19 cases began to climb rapidly, the Prime Minister and the National Oversight Committee responded by ordering a complete lockdown of San Pedro and 3 other affected communities. While many of us, yours truly included, were busy pointing fingers and trying to determine who was to blame for the sudden spike in infections, others focused their attention and energies on helping their communities to cope with this crisis. The hashtag San Pedro Strong began to trend on social media. But beyond sharing a simple hashtag, there also began to emerge stories of people on Ambergris Caye that were actually doing something to help others. One of those good Samaritans is Alexandria Boiton, or Alex, as she is better known. Alex recently started a small business called Paco's Pot Pies, which has now been rebranded as Alex's Pot Pies. As soon as the order to lockdown was issued, Alex took to social media to offer free pot pies to anyone in San Pedro who tested positive and would not be able to leave their home due to quarantine. I had the chance to speak with Alex a few days ago from her very busy kitchen about why she decided to make such a generous offer.
I think I was one of the first persons on social media to come out and start, trying to tell people, like, we got to be supportive. We have to be supportive. These are people. So that was a huge reason. They were not getting any type of support at all. And I was actually a victim of a cyberbullying instance with I don't know if it was one person or a few, thought it was funny to do a fake COVID flyer. I don't know if you saw it. I actually shared it on my Facebook. And I don't know who did that, why they did it. If maybe they saw that I was defending COVID patients and thought it was funny. I'm not sure why. I will never know why anyone does stuff like that, but that hit me hard. I got a slight first-hand taste of what they're probably going through, COVID patients, and the demonizing and the stigma. And it really made me sit for a couple of days at home and think, you know what can I do to help people? What can I do to help these people because they need help? And I sat here and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna feed them. I'm gonna send them my pies. I don't know how else to do it, so I'm gonna just feed them. If I can give them a little comfort with trying to get them fed, at least give them a nice meal, let them know that at least someone is supporting them. Maybe that will make a difference in their day, put a smile on their faces. And then that's when I put my post up, and then it went viral. So there you go.
Well, I think that's beautiful because not only are you providing people with food when, time of illness, but you are helping to break down this stigma that exists. And And when we reduce the stigma, ultimately that's going to help us flatten the curve. So I think this is fantastic what you're doing. How many people have taken you up on your offer so far?
A lot. Every day I keep getting more and more text messages, more and more families. And as I said, it's 100% confidential. I want to make that clear to the public. It's 100% confidential, you guys. So when you reach out to me, you are reaching out to me and no one is going to know. Okay? No one's going to know. I'm not going to make it public. And I don't speak about the identities of any of the COVID patients or those that are in self-isolation for coming directly in contact with their family members or, anything like that, any of those situations. So, it's every day. I've already had a couple more message me this morning. And it's beautiful because not only do they reach out to me, but, for the assistance, but then we're developing a relationship because I find them messaging me, letting me know how they're doing, and just kind of wanting someone to talk to that they feel comfortable enough to open up with.
Just so people understand, it's Friday, August the 14th when we're talking to each other. And I think it's important to mention that because this situation does change daily. And so by the time someone hears this podcast, the numbers may be, significantly higher than they are right now. But when you decided to do this, to offer your pies to people that need them, there were probably about 30 cases, I think. 30.
Yep, there was 30 cases.
And now we're well over 100. And like I said, by the time people hear this, I mean, unfortunately, it could be, a lot more. How are you able to keep up with the demand as the number of positive cases continue to grow in San Pedro?
So I'm doing that. But then also what I decided with the help of my friend, Michelle Moran, she is doing the care packages. She reached out to me after she saw my post and wanted to help. And so she is taking care of getting the care packages together. And what we decided is I'll do the pies every other week. So like this Tuesday, so I did pies this past week. So now this Tuesday is going to be my delivery day every week for them. We're going to do soup because we figure chicken soup is very good for you when you're sick. So we're going to do chicken soup and care packages. And then the following week, I'll do pies. Now, this Tuesday, I will do a few pies for the new people that I have on the list because they're new to my list and I want to make sure that they get a pie with their soup as well. So I'm going to be doing both just for those people. But that's how I'm going to be able to at least give myself a little bit of a rest in between with the pie making because pies are so much harder to make than a lot of other foods. So that's how I can keep up. Just to answer your question, that's how I'll be able to keep up with getting everybody fed.
Wow. So Alex, what is the mood like in San Pedro right now?
Obviously, there's some people that are trying to remain calm. I'm one of them. But there's definitely fear. It's pretty obvious. There's a lot of fear right now on the island. So it's sad, it's sad.
Well, definitely some comfort food like a delicious pot pie has to help.
Definitely. That's the whole point.
Alex's Pot Pies, first and foremost, is a business. And you started this as a source of revenue. Now you've shifted your production to, doing this community outreach. I imagine that one of the ways that people can support you and thank you and encourage you to keep doing this is by doing business with you. So healthy people in San Pedro can still order pies and pay you for your pies. How can people get in contact with you to order up an Alex's Pot Pie?
Well, I've got my Facebook page, actually Alex's Pot Pies. It's just simple, Alex's Pot Pies. So they can message me via Facebook, my WhatsApp information. There's like a click button on my Facebook page, my business page, where you can actually either WhatsApp me with a call or a message, or you can actually send me a message through Facebook, or they could also call my number, which is 637-1733, if they want to order, pies that for, like I said, business. Every Thursday, that's when I do my orders, my delivery orders. So I actually had to push off some of my customer orders from yesterday to tomorrow because I've been cooking every day since Monday. I'm actually cooking for the police officers here who are affected and the frontline workers as well, which I actually forgot to mention. So I'm providing the frontline workers with their meals every Tuesday. I'll be providing them with their meals as well every Tuesday when I do my COVID warriors, as I like to call them. So.
Wow, it's incredible what you're doing, Alex. Thank you so much for that. And I think everybody in Belize hopes that soon you will shift to just going back to operating a business, because it means that there won't be a demand, which means that the numbers of COVID infections will be dropping, and that's what we're all trying to work towards. But until then, I can't say enough to thank people like yourselves and other businesses in Belize that are stepping up. I know there's been a lot of negativity since things got bad in the last 10 days or so, but there are, beacons of light in the darkness. Alex, you're definitely one of them. Thank you so much for this. And let's just stick together and get through this.
People will always remember how you make them feel. And if you can help someone, make someone feel better in some way, it makes a difference in their lives. And for the COVID patients, especially in the families who are being affected by this, they really, really need that support right now. So, that's really the message that I want to send to everyone. Just remember, they are people too. We're all people, and we're all fighting for the same goal, which is to have a better Belize, right? A healthy Belize. So let's just try to get together and do this. Let's get this done, Absolutely. That's a beautiful note to wrap this up on. Alex, thank you very much for taking time to talk to me today, and keep up the good work with Alex's Pot Pies. Thank you so much, Brent. I really appreciate you helping me to spread some joy to people. And please remember, people, if you are COVID positive, just get a hold of me and I will try to get you as much help as I can get you and get you some pies and some care packages and goodies your way. Okay. So reach out.
Okay. It's that time of the show when I get to tell you about another Belizean podcast. And I'm very excited about this one because this is a brand new show that just debuted last week. So that means that Brent's 2 Cents is no longer the newest podcast in Belize, and I am thrilled about that. You see, one of the reasons I started my own podcast was hopefully to get more Belizeans listening to podcasts. And if more Belizeans are listening, then more Belizeans will start creating their own podcasts. Well, the newest member of our Belizean Pod Squad is the Natasha Stuart podcast. Many of you listening right now probably know Natasha in real life in San Pedro, but she also has thousands of Instagram followers, so I expect she is going to quickly gain a huge following for her podcast. And rightfully so, at least based on her debut episode, because her show is very good. Episode 1 digs in on how to cope with all the anxiety surrounding COVID-19, and honestly, I felt better after listening to Natasha and her guest for an hour. The Natasha Stuart podcast is available in full video on YouTube, or you can download the audio version anywhere you get your podcasts. She promises a new episode every week, and I'm already a subscriber. So congratulations, Natasha, and welcome to the Belize podcast movement. And that's going to do it for episode 7 of Brent's 2 Cents. Remember, you can find this show everywhere you get your podcast, including Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and all the rest. Every episode is also uploaded to YouTube. And if you like this show, please don't forget to give it a 5-star rating and a review. Thanks to those of you who have already left reviews and ratings, because that really helps an independent podcast like this to get noticed. And finally, you can be part of the podcast movement in Belize by sharing this show with at least one person who otherwise may not know about it. There is no better promotion than word of mouth, so please help to grow the audience for Brent's 2 Cents and all your favorite Belizean podcasts, which will keep us motivated to keep producing our podcasts for you. Remember, you can hit me up anytime on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at 2 Cents Belize. And I especially encourage you to leave me a WhatsApp voice message for next week's podcast. You can find the WhatsApp number on the Brent's 2 Cents Facebook page. Hey, another big shout out to everyone in San Pedro, Shipyard, Guinea Grass, and Santa Martha who are going to be on lockdown for a little bit longer than they expected. And for the rest of us in Belize, let's do our part to get this situation under control. Stay home unless it's absolutely necessary to go out. Limit your contact as much as possible. even within your own family. And of course, follow all the recommended safety protocols. And so until next week, stay safe, wash your hands, wear your mask, and most importantly, be nice to each other.
Brent's 2 Cents is a presentation of OSHA Productions, Belize's affordable professional video production company.